Hello superhumans, I'm Jonathan Oxer and this is SuperHouse. Hey Bonnie, seen anything interesting lately? No. Just a robot mowing the lawn. A little while ago I did a video appealing to manufacturers of robotic lawnmowers, asking someone to send me one. And Husqvarna came to the party, so I now have a Husqvarna Automower robot lawnmower. Now normally the point of this video channel is not to talk about expensive commercial gadgets. The idea is to talk about DIY projects. I want to be able to show you how to do things yourself, so I like going with open source and I like doing low budget hands-on projects. But this is a really interesting opportunity, so I thought it was worth doing a few videos about this. I need to disclose that this mower is provided by Husqvarna. I didn't pay for it, which means that I'm doing a review, but I'm also going to be unbiased. I'm going to, if there is anything about this that's crap, I'll tell you. I'll be honest about it. But who hasn't wanted to play with a gadget like this? This is a fantastic opportunity, so I'm going to make the most of it. And there are lots of things that we can do with this. I've got some ideas for things that I've wanted to play with for a long time. Things like differential GPS, where you have a fixed reference receiver sending correction factor to a mobile receiver to improve its accuracy. I want to try attaching a GPS receiver to the mower and see if I can get the accuracy good enough to plot its position around the yard. So what I'm going to do in this first video is just give you an introduction to the Automower, robot lawnmowers in general, and the sort of things you can expect from it. And then in later videos we'll have some fun with it and try to do some more unusual things. So let's start by comparing the Automower to my classic Honda HRU 197, which is the standard petrol-driven manual push mower. This is a really nice unit. This particular, like the HRU 197, is one of those classics that's used by commercial garden contractors all the time. If you've got a garden contractor that comes to your place and does your lawn, they quite probably use this exact model of mower. I did quite a bit of research before I bought it, and this one was a really good one. So, major differences, obviously. Manually driven by a computer, automatic. Petrol powered, electric. Noisy, quiet. And in a moment you'll find out just how quiet these things are. And the major difference is in the usage pattern. A petrol-driven mower like this has the power to cut through grass that's quite thick. The Automower can't. It can only cut a little bit at a time. And the idea is that with a petrol mower, you use it maybe every week or every couple of weeks, depending on the rate of grass growth, and you let the grass grow a fair distance, and then you cut a lot of it off. You might cut 10 centimetres, 15, 20 centimetres at a time. With the Automower, the idea is that it cuts the grass every day or two, but it only takes a few millimetres off each time. So the idea is that it's like a cut early, cut often method, pretty much what I do with my hair now. So instead of letting it grow long, hack it back, grow long, hack it back, it just continually has the top taken off it so that it always stays at that perfect length. So this is something that you run frequently automatically versus occasionally manually. So if you look at the way the cutting heads work, you can see they're on a similar principle, just on a totally different scale because of the different usage patterns. On the traditional mower, it's got these large cutting blades because it needs to cut in fairly hard into grass that's quite thick, and there's a lot of power behind it, so it cuts a lot at a time. And of course you want to cut everything in one pass. You don't want to have to keep going back over the same area. So it's important that you get complete 100% coverage of the cutting area when you use a manual mower. If you look at the bottom of the Automower, you can't actually even see where the blades are. That's because they're almost like little razor blades. They are on pivots behind this metal disc, and they are attached to another disc so that when it spins, the blades just swing out by centripetal force. And the blades themselves only come out about 1 centimetre or so, which means that as it's cutting, it doesn't get 100% coverage of the area that it's cutting over. It only trims a little bit at a time, not just in terms of length, but in terms of the number of blades that it cuts in the area that it covers. So if we get right in close here, let's have a look at the blades themselves. Now you can just see one here on the back. I'll grab one from the bottom where it should be hanging out and move it up so that you can see it. There you go. So it's basically like a double-sided razor blade. It's got a sharp edge on both sides and it pivots quite freely. So as this disc spins, the blade comes out, but then it easily just falls away. That also means that if it hits any obstructions, it just comes back. Unlike with the traditional mower, if it hits a toy or something that's on the ground, it'll rip straight through it. With the auto mower, it might scratch it a little bit, but the little blade will basically just go ting and move back out of the way, so you shouldn't do any permanent damage. So with a manual mower, you obviously have total control. You can run it nicely along your garden bed edges, you can make sure you get coverage on the areas that really need it, but how does an automatic mower deal with that? There are all sorts of hazards around a typical garden, and it needs to make sure that it can deal with that in a safe way and also recover from problems that might happen. So right here we have a fall hazard for the mower. This is the area that we want to mow, but right here there's an excavation. I need to do some paving here. There'll be a little retaining wall, but at the moment it's just a drop off. So if the mower just wanders along here, gets to the edge, falls off the edge, it can get stuck. The way that is dealt with is that there is a guide wire that runs all the way around the garden. It's green. Once it's been in there for a little while, it's sort of embedded in the grass, so it's hard to see. But the mower can detect this wire, and it knows that if it gets up to this point, it's reached the edge of the garden, it backs off and heads off in another direction. Now installing that guide wire sounds like quite a pain, but it was done probably in about 25 or 30 minutes by the installers when they came along from the dealer. You can install the system yourself, and you can also opt to have the dealer install it for you, so they'll come along and do all of the setup. And the day we had it installed, it happened to be pouring rain, but the whole installation went in pretty easily. So all that happened was that the installers went around the edge of the garden with this wire and used little stakes to stick it into the ground. That way it's all hidden down out of the way safe, it's not a tripping hazard. And it's at a measured distance from the edge of the mowing area. As you can see in this general overall view, we have a fairly irregularly shaped mowing area. If there are defined borders like edges that the mower can bump into, then that's fine. The mower will just bump into it, detect that it's hit an edge, and head off in another direction. But for an area like this, we really needed to put in the boundary wire so that it would know when it had reached an edge and not fall over into a hole or get itself stuck. The boundary wire itself forms a complete loop and it ends at this charging station. This has to be plugged into power, so there is a power cord that goes underneath all of those plants, ends up at the gazebo. We have power in there, and that is used to recharge the unit when the battery goes flat. The mower itself can detect when its battery is getting low and will automatically drive itself back to its base station. It can do that by homing in on the signal from the station. Basically it locates it, and it can also follow the edge wire to get to it. Now if we get down low, we can see that there is a green light there in the base station. That means that the boundary wire is a complete circuit. The base station has contacts under it that can link up with the with contacts on the front of the mower. So the mower pushes itself underneath here and drives up against those contacts, and that's how it recharges. You can also see just around the back here the boundary wire, which comes in and terminates inside the base station. So there are just some little press fit connectors in there, Scotch lock connectors, pretty easy to put on, and you just run the wire around, cut it to length, put on the connectors and clip it into place. Installing the base station was actually pretty quick, didn't take long at all. So two things that surprised me about this whole process were, one, how big the mower is. I was expecting something a little bit smaller. I don't know, maybe in my head I was thinking of a Roomba. And in terms of functionality, this is basically like a Roomba for your lawn. It's not all that heavy though, like you can just pick it up. So it's not too hard to move around. But that also raises security. So this is an expensive mower. What happens if someone walks into your backyard, picks it up and walks away with it? Because it'll be out there on its own unattended. It does have some security features built in. I'll talk about that in a second. But the second surprising thing is that it's all intended to stay outside all the time. I thought the base station would probably have to go undercover, but it doesn't. It's designed to just sit out here all weather, and the unit sits in the base station in the rain and sun, whatever. It doesn't care. The mower has a keypad on the back and a pin to access it. So if you want to do anything with it, you have to enter the pin. I'll just enter 1234, which is what I've got it set for the video, but of course that's not my normal pin. And it's in parked mode at the moment, so I can press start to continue, and then it will just go off and start mowing. If anyone tries to pick up the mower, it detects the fact that it's been picked up, and if they don't enter the pin, a really loud alarm goes off, and the mower also disables itself, so that if anyone tries to steal it, it's useless to them. Unless it goes back to the factory to be reset, then they can't make use of it. So basically, stealing one of these, you end up with a really big paperweight. So after I've unlocked the mower, I can now go to a menu. There are a whole lot of options that are set here, but I can also just hit start. And if I do that, it gives me some options to mow either the main area, which is the default, secondary area. I can override the timer, and I can do spot cutting. The default is just main area, which is what you want. And all you have to do to select that is close the hatch, and it gets on its way. Then it heads off on its mission to mow the entire yard. Just zigzags around, bounces off the edges, and covers the whole area. As you can hear, it's not very loud. Just sort of makes a little bit of a whining and a buzz. Certainly not going to annoy the neighbours. I wouldn't want to run it at 10 o'clock at night, unless the neighbours were a little bit of a distance away. But still, most of the time they won't even know it's running. Here you can see it's navigating its way around a fairly tight little spot. It's bounced off the clothesline, bounced off the edge of the hedge there, and now it's just wandering off across the garden again. Now we're going to see how it deals with the edge where that fall danger is. So it detects the guide wire, backs off, turns a bit and heads off in another direction. In this case it's going to hit the wire again pretty much immediately, of course. Turns a bit more, tries another direction. The algorithm seems to be very simple. It just keeps doing this until the battery goes flat, or the timer tells it that it's time to stop mowing. And when the battery goes flat, you don't actually have to do anything. It detects the fact that the battery is getting low, and it just wanders off, finds its base station, plugs it in and starts recharging. So once it's up and going, you don't need to do a thing. It's already run over this grass, so it's just trimming it down a little bit, and there's not a whole lot of difference after it's gone over it. You can just see a bit of loose grass lying around there, small bits that fall down, then they just mulch down, they act as compost in the lawn. So you don't end up with a big strip where it's just travelled, because each time that it goes over it's only taking off a small amount of grass. So what do you do if the mower is wandering around the lawn and you want to come out and play with the kids, or you're having a barbecue or something? How do you get rid of it? Well, you can basically tell it to go away and park itself. Just hit the big red stop button on the back, and of course you need the PIN code to unlock it. Once I've unlocked the mower, I can then just say park. It waits until I close the lid, but it gives me some options. It can park until further notice, start again in 3 hours. So if you're having a barbecue or something, you say start again 3 hours from now, or start with a timer. So I'll just say park until further notice, close it, walk away. That's all you do. It then goes and finds its base station all by itself, parks itself and starts recharging until it needs to go out and mow again. So if I'd selected the park for 3 hours option, then it would just sit here recharging for 3 hours and then automatically head off and start mowing the lawn again. And by that time your barbecue's over or whatever, and it's safe to come back out. But of course the idea with an Automower is that it's automatic. You shouldn't even have to start it and stop it manually. And the system supports schedules, so you can tell it to mow, for example, between 9 AM and 11 AM every second day. You can set up whatever schedule you like and it will just do it. So you don't have to go out and say, okay, start mowing now. The idea is that because it does it very frequently, it's not something that you should consciously have to do. It just happens by itself, and your lawn is just always mowed. It always looks good. Now I know that so far this video seemed a bit like a sales pitch, and it's not intended to be. It's just important that I show you some of the basics of the system so that in later videos where I talk about some of the cool things that it can do, hey, hello, then you understand, what's going on. So this is just a bit of an introduction to the system, and later we'll do some more interesting stuff. One of the questions, of course, is how is it going to deal with pets, or how are pets going to deal with it? And so far, I've had 0 problems. We have 1 dog, 3 cats, and the dog basically couldn't care less. She's not interested in the slightest. I think if it moved a bit faster, she might want to chase it, but as it is, it's a bit too slow. Come look at the mower. Good dog. Good dog. It looks boring, so she just wanders around, and if it comes near her, she just walks off in a different direction. She basically doesn't care. Mowing the lawn has never been this relaxing. I can just listen to the birds. When setting up the mower, there are some hazards to look out for. One is to make sure there is nowhere that its wheels can get stuck. Now this particular grate that we had to put in to fix a drainage problem had a bit of a gap around the edge, so I just backfilled it with some dirt to make sure that it couldn't get stuck. These particular slots are small enough that the mower would still go straight over it, the wheels won't get stuck in it. But if you have a bigger grate, you might need to do something like put some chicken wire down and cable tie it on so that there aren't holes big enough for the mower to fall into. Now the mower doesn't try to cut in any particular pattern, it just wanders around randomly. It bounces into an edge, backs off, turns a random amount, heads off again until it bumps into something else. So that way it just crisscrosses the main area and you get good coverage. What that means is that it can sometimes have some problems with narrow areas. This particular part of my garden is a bit of a problem, I've discovered. So as you can see, it's a cul-de-sac and the clothesline is right in the middle as an obstruction. So what happens is that the mower tends to go into the cul-de-sac, hit the edge, bounce off, turn around, bounce off the clothesline, head off, bounce into another edge. So it can spend 10 minutes stuck in here just going zigzagging backwards and forwards. Eventually it finds its way back out again. It doesn't actually get stuck forever, but it can end up spending a fair bit of time in an area like that just because of the way the algorithm works in terms of the mowing pattern. So the final thing I want to talk about, while I'm sounding a bit like a sales commercial, is the different models. So you've got different size lawns, obviously you need different size mowers to deal with them. And these are based on a couple of different factors. They're rated on the mowing area, so what area you can typically maintain with one unit. And they have different features as well, depending on the area that you're doing. For example, this one is basically the middle of the road model. It's good for up to a couple of thousand square meters. There is also a smaller model and a larger model, and then there are variants within the same physical chassis. For example, this one is, what model is it? The 320. There's another one which I think is the 330X, which I'm pretty sure is physically the same machine, but it has a larger battery pack, so it's rated to do a bigger lawn area, and it also has GPS, and that can be more important if you're in a really big open area. In a little backyard like this, I mean, GPS isn't accurate enough for it to actually be any benefit, so it just works on bouncing off the boundaries. So there are a number of different models, and of course if you've got a really big area, then you can have several mowers going, if you want to mow a golf course. Come on, Bonnie. Good dog. So thanks for watching Bonnie the Super Dog, and in the future episodes we're going to do some fun stuff with this, but in the meantime, go and build something awesome. Double rainbow.